I loaned my best friend of 10 years $40 for a tow truck. When I asked for it back 2 months later, he exploded on me in public, said I was acting superior, and told me I'd never see that money again. He ended our friendship right there in a Taco Bell parking lot. Now everyone says I'm petty for letting $40 ruin a decade of friendship, but was it really about the money or about respect? The notification lit up my phone screen at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I should have been asleep. I had to be up in 4 hours for my shift at the warehouse, but instead, I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the same conversation over and over in my head. It's just $40, bro. Just $40. The words had been echoing in my mind for weeks now, each repetition adding another layer of hurt, another degree of anger. Because it wasn't just $40. It had never been just $40. Let me back up. My name is Marcus, and until 3 months ago, I had a best friend named Jake. We'd known each other since we were 13 years old, that awkward middle school phase where you're trying to figure out who you are and desperately hoping someone will accept you anyway. Jake and I bonded over our shared love of basketball, terrible action movies, and the fact that we were both the new kids that year. His family had moved from across town. Mine had moved from another state entirely. We became inseparable. Through high school, through my parents' divorce, through his dad's layoff, through college rejections and acceptance letters, through first jobs and first heartbreaks, we were there for each other. The kind of friendship where you don't need to explain yourself, where showing up is enough, where you can sit in comfortable silence or talk for hours about nothing and everything. Or at least, that's what I thought we had. The trouble started in March. I remember the exact date, March 15th, because it was the Ides of March, and I'd made a stupid joke about betrayal that Jake had laughed at. The irony wasn't lost on me later. I was at work, stacking boxes in the warehouse, when my phone buzzed. It was Jake. Yo, you busy? At work. What's up? My car died. Like, completely dead. Won't even turn over. I'm stuck at the gas station on Route 9. I felt a pang of sympathy. Jake's car was a 2003 Honda Civic with over 200,000 miles on it. We joked that it ran on prayers and duct tape. Apparently the prayers had run out. Damn, man, that sucks. You call AAA? Don't have it. Can't afford it right now. Look, I hate to ask, but could you spot me some cash? I need to get it towed to Mike's shop, and I need gas money to get to work tomorrow. I get paid Friday, I'll pay you back then. I just need like $40. I didn't hesitate. That's what friends do, right? They help each other out. I'd been in tight spots before, and Jake had been there for me. Like the time I got a flat tire at midnight and he drove across town to help me change it. Or when I was short on rent and he bought all my groceries for 2 weeks without making me feel like a charity case. Yeah, of course. I get off at 6. I can swing by and drop it off. You're a lifesaver, man. Seriously. I'll get it back to you Friday, promise. That evening I stopped by his apartment. He looked stressed, hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. I handed him 2 20s, and the relief on his face made me feel good, like I'd done something that mattered. Thanks, Marcus. I mean it. Friday, I got you. Don't worry about it. We're good. And I meant it. At that moment, I genuinely didn't worry about it. Friday came. I didn't hear from Jake. I wasn't too concerned. Maybe he'd forgotten. Maybe he was busy. I'd see him over the weekend anyway. We usually hung out on Saturdays, grabbed some food, maybe caught a game. Saturday rolled around. Jake texted to cancel our plans. Something came up with work. Rain check? No problem. Hey, you still good for that 40 when you get a chance? The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, yeah, for sure. Next week cool? Yeah, that's fine. But next week came and went. No mention of the money. I started to feel a weird tension building in my chest. Not anger exactly, but something uncomfortable. A nagging feeling that I was being avoided. 2 weeks after I'd lent him the money, I saw Jake's Instagram story. He was at a bar downtown with some guys from his job, drinks lined up on the table, everyone laughing. The caption, "Much needed night out with the boys." I stared at that photo for a long time. He had money for drinks, but not to pay me back? I felt something shift inside me, a small crack in the foundation of our friendship. I texted him that night, kept it casual. Hey man, saw you were out, good times? Yeah, needed to blow off some steam. Work's been crazy. I waited a beat, then, cool. Hey, any chance you could get me that 40 soon? I'm a little tight this month. The response came faster this time, but the tone was different. Dude, It's just 40 bucks. Why are you acting like I'm broke or something? I read that message 3 times, trying to understand why it made me so angry. Just 40 bucks. Like it was nothing. Like it didn't matter. But it did matter. To me, $40 was groceries for a week if I shopped carefully. It was gas to get to work. It was the difference between making rent comfortably and sweating it out until payday. I worked at a warehouse loading and unloading trucks for $16.50 an hour. After taxes, rent, utilities, car insurance, and student loan payments on a degree I never finished, I was living paycheck to paycheck. Some months I had to choose between buying new work boots or eating something other than ramen. $40 wasn't just anything to me. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I typed, "I'm not saying you're broke. I just need it back when you can." "Whatever, man. I'll get it to you." He didn't. Another 2 weeks passed. I saw him post about buying new sneakers, limited edition Jordans that retailed for at least $200. I felt my jaw clench. The crack in our friendship widened. I decided to bring it up in person. We were supposed to meet up for lunch, our first hangout in over a month. I suggested Taco Bell because it was cheap and neutral territory. I got there first, ordered a couple of tacos, and waited. Jake showed up 15 minutes late, which wasn't unusual for him. What was unusual was the defensive energy he brought with him, like he was already geared up for a fight. "What's up?" he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Not much. How's work?" "It's whatever. Same shit, different day." We made small talk for a few minutes, but it felt forced, like we were strangers trying to remember how to be friends. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Hey, so, about that $40. His face changed immediately. The casual mask dropped, replaced by something harder. "Seriously? You're still on that?" "Jake, it's been over a month. You said you'd pay me back." "And I will." "Jesus, Marcus, why are you being so uptight about this?" "I'm not being uptight. I just need my money back. I helped you out when you needed it, and now I'm asking for what's mine." "What's yours?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Listen to yourself. You sound like a loan shark or something." "I sound like someone who lent his friend money and expected to get it back." "It's 40 bucks. His voice was rising now, drawing looks from other customers. 40 bucks. You're really going to make me feel like shit over 40 bucks? "I'm not trying to make you feel like shit. I'm trying to get my money back. You know what your problem is?" He leaned forward, his eyes hard. "You think you're better than me? You think because you gave me $40, you're some kind of saint and I'm supposed to be grateful forever? That's not... No, let me finish. You're making me feel less than. Like I'm some charity case. Like I'm not good enough to be your friend unless I'm in debt to you." I felt my own anger rising, hot and sharp in my chest. "That's bullshit, Jake. I helped you because you're my friend. Because that's what friends do, and all I'm asking is for you to keep your word and pay me back." "Keep my word? Who talks like that? You sound like my dad." Maybe your dad had a point about responsibility. It was a low blow, and I knew it. Jake's relationship with his father was complicated. His dad had struggled with alcoholism and had been unreliable throughout Jake's childhood. Bringing him up was crossing a line. Jake's face went red. "Fuck you, Marcus. Fuck me? I'm the one who helped you out." "Helped me out? You gave me 40 bucks and now you won't shut up about it. You know what? Keep your 40 bucks. Consider it payment for finding out what kind of person you really are." "What kind of person I am? I'm the person who was there for you. I'm the person who dropped everything to help you when your car broke down." "And you're the person who can't let it go. You're the person who values $40 more than a 10-year friendship." We were both standing now, voices raised, faces flushed. Other customers were definitely staring. An employee was hovering nearby, probably trying to decide if they needed to intervene. "This isn't about the money," I shouted. "It's about respect. It's about you acting like helping you meant nothing." "It meant nothing because you turned it into this. You turned a favor into a transaction." "I turned it into a transaction? You're the one who promised to pay me back and then acted like I was the asshole for expecting you to keep your word." "You know what? We're done. We're fucking done." Jake grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. "Fine," I called after him. "But you still owe me 40 bucks. He flipped me off without turning around and walked out of the Taco Bell. I stood there in the middle of the restaurant, breathing hard, my hands shaking. Slowly, I became aware of the silence around me, the stares. I grabbed my food and left, my appetite completely gone. That was 6 weeks ago. We haven't spoken since. At first, I was just angry. Angry at Jake for being defensive, for making me feel like the bad guy, for valuing $40 less than our friendship. But as the days passed, the anger started to mix with other things. Hurt, confusion, doubt. Had I been too pushy about the money? Should I have just let it go? Was I really ending a 10-year friendship over $40? Our mutual friends started to weigh in, which made everything worse. My friend Tyler said I was being petty. Dude, it's $40. You've known Jake since you were kids. Is this really worth it? My coworker Sarah said Jake was in the wrong. He borrowed money and didn't pay it back. Then he got mad at you for asking? That's manipulative. My cousin DeAndre said we were both being stubborn. Y'all need to talk it out. This is stupid. Everyone had an opinion, and none of them made me feel better. I started seeing Jake around. Our city isn't that big, and we ran in similar circles. The first time I saw him at the grocery store, my heart jumped. I thought maybe we'd talk. Maybe we'd figure this out. But he saw me, made eye contact for a split second, and then turned and walked the other way. It hurt more than I expected. The second time, at a mutual friend's birthday party, he didn't even acknowledge me, just acted like I wasn't there. I left early. The third time, I was the one who turned away first. It felt like admitting defeat. I started replaying our entire friendship in my head, looking for signs I'd missed. Had Jake always been like this? Had I just never noticed? Or had something changed? I remembered the time in high school when I'd lent him my favorite hoodie and he'd returned it with a stain. He'd apologized, offered to replace it, but I'd said it was fine. And it had been fine. I'd never thought about it again. I remembered when he'd borrowed my car for a date and brought it back with an empty gas tank. He'd filled it up the next day without me even asking. I remembered when I'd covered his share of the pizza because he'd forgotten his wallet. He'd paid me back the next time we hung out. So what was different now? Maybe it was the amount. $40 was more than a tank of gas or a pizza. Maybe it was the timing. Both of us were struggling financially in ways we hadn't been in high school. Maybe it was the way he'd promised to pay me back and then didn't. Maybe it was the way he'd made me feel like I was wrong for expecting him to keep his word. Or maybe it was all of it. Maybe our friendship had been built on a foundation that worked when we were kids, but couldn't support the weight of adult responsibilities and adult problems. I talked to my mom about it. She listened to the whole story, then said, "Baby, it's not about the money. It's about trust. You trusted him to keep his word, and he broke that trust. Then he made you feel bad for being hurt. That's not how friends treat each other. But everyone says I'm being petty. Everyone isn't in your shoes. Everyone didn't work hard for that money just to have someone act like it doesn't matter. You know what you can afford to lose, and it's not just about dollars and cents." "So, you think I did the right thing?" She was quiet for a moment. "I think you did what you needed to do. Whether it's right or wrong, that's something you'll have to figure out for yourself." Not exactly the validation I was looking for, but it helped. I started thinking about what the $40 represented. It wasn't just money, it was 4 hours of my labor. 4 hours of lifting heavy boxes, of sweating in a warehouse that was too hot in summer and too cold in winter, of coming home with an aching back and sore muscles. 4 hours of my life that I'd given to help a friend. And when I asked for it back, I wasn't just asking for paper and coins. I was asking for acknowledgement that those 4 hours mattered, that my effort mattered, that I mattered. Jake's response had been to tell me it was just $40, to make me feel like I was being unreasonable for wanting back what was mine, to turn my request into an attack on him. That's what hurt the most. Not the money itself, but the message behind his reaction. Your time doesn't matter. Your effort doesn't matter. You don't matter, at least not as much as my pride. I started to realize that this wasn't really about $40 at all. It was about respect. It was about reciprocity. It was about whether our friendship was built on mutual care or just convenience. And maybe I started to think it was okay that it ended. Not because I wanted it to end. Not because I didn't value 10 years of friendship. But because sometimes people show you who they are, and you have to decide whether you can accept that. Jake had shown me that he valued his ego more than our friendship. That he'd rather lose a friend than admit he was wrong. That he'd rather make me the villain than take responsibility for his actions. And I had to decide if I could accept that. If I could continue a friendship with someone who treated me that way. The answer, I realized, was no. It wasn't about being petty. It wasn't about holding a grudge. It was about having boundaries. It was about saying, this is how I expect to be treated, and if you can't meet that standard, then we can't be friends. Was it sad? Absolutely. Did I miss him? Every day. Did I wish things had gone differently? More than I could say. But I also knew that I couldn't go back. Even if Jake apologized tomorrow, even if he paid me back with interest, something fundamental had broken between us. The trust was gone. The ease was gone. The certainty that we had each other's backs, that was gone too. Maybe that makes me the asshole. Maybe I should have been more forgiving, more understanding, more willing to let it go. But I keep coming back to this. If I'd been the one who borrowed the money, I would have moved heaven and earth to pay it back. Not because of the amount, but because I'd given my word. Because my friend had helped me when I needed it. And the least I could do was keep my promise. Jake didn't see it that way. And that difference in values, in how we viewed friendship and responsibility and respect, that was the real reason our friendship ended. Not $40. Never $40. It's been 6 weeks and I still don't have my money back. I don't expect to get it at this point. I've written it off as the cost of learning who someone really is. Some people say that's expensive for a lesson. I say it's cheap compared to what it would have cost to keep pretending everything was fine. Last week, I ran into Jake's mom at the pharmacy. She gave me a sad smile and asked how I was doing. I said I was fine. She said Jake missed me, that he was too proud to reach out, but that he talked about me sometimes. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me wanted to ask if he'd mentioned the $40, if he'd told her his version of what happened. Part of me wanted to say that I missed him too, that I wished things were different. Instia, am I the a-hole for ending my friendship over $40? The notification lit up my phone screen at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. It was Jake. My best friend since we were 13 years old, back when our biggest concerns were whether we'd make the basketball team and which girl would say yes to the 8th grade dance. Yo, man, you awake? I wasn't, but the buzzing pulled me from sleep. I blinked at the screen, my brain foggy with interrupted dreams. Yeah, what's up? I typed back, already feeling that familiar nod of concern. Late-night texts from Jake were never good news. My car just died on me, like completely dead. I'm stranded at the gas station on Route 9. AAA says it'll cost $40 for the tow, and I'm literally running on fumes. Payday isn't till Friday. Any chance you could help me out? I swear I'll get you back. I sat up in bed, rubbing my eyes. $40. I did the mental math quickly. I had maybe $200 in my checking account until my own paycheck hit on Thursday. Rent was paid, but I still needed groceries, gas, and I was already cutting it close. But this was Jake. We'd been through everything together. He'd been there when my mom got sick. I'd been there when his parents divorced. You don't abandon your best friend when they're stranded at a gas station at 3 in the morning. Yeah, I got you. Venmo, okay? You're a lifesaver, man. Seriously, I'll pay you back Friday, promise. I sent the money, watched my balance drop to $160, and tried to go back to sleep. But I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling settling in my chest. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was something else, something I couldn't quite name in the darkness of my bedroom. That was 3 months ago, and that $40 became the thread that, when pulled, unraveled a decade-long friendship. Jake and I met in 7th grade, both of us awkward kids trying to navigate the brutal social hierarchy of middle school. He was the new kid, having just moved from 2 states over when his dad got transferred. I was the quiet kid who spent lunch periods in the library because I didn't quite fit in anywhere else. We bonded over comic books first. Both of us were obsessed with the same obscure superhero series that nobody else seemed to know about. Then video games. Then everything else. By high school, we were inseparable. People knew us as a unit, Marcus and Jake, Jake and Marcus. We had the same friend group, went to the same parties, applied to the same colleges, though only I got in, and I ended up going to community college instead because I couldn't afford the university. We'd been through real stuff together. When my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer our junior year, Jake was at the hospital with me more than some of my own relatives. When his girlfriend cheated on him senior year, I was the one who sat with him while he cried and helped him slash her tires. Okay, we were 18 and stupid, but still, that's loyalty. So when he needed $40, of course I gave it to him. That's what friends do. The first Friday came and went. I didn't think much of it. People forget. Life gets busy. Maybe his paycheck was smaller than expected. I wasn't worried. This was Jake. The second Friday, I was at his apartment for our usual gaming session. We were deep into a co-op campaign, and during a loading screen, I casually mentioned it. Hey, by the way, you get that $40? No rush. Just wanted to check in. The change in his demeanor was immediate. His jaw tightened, and he didn't look at me, just kept staring at the screen even though the game hadn't loaded yet. Seriously, Marcus? It's just $40, bro. Why are you acting like I'm broke or something? I felt like I'd been slapped. I'm not. I just asked if you had it. You said you'd pay me back. Yeah, and I will. Jesus. You're really going to make this a thing? I'm not making it a thing. I literally just asked. Well, it feels like you're making it a thing. Like you don't trust me or something. The game loaded, and we played in tense silence for the next hour before I made an excuse and left early. I drove home, confused and hurt. When had asking for money I'd loaned become an attack on his character? I told myself to let it go. It was just a weird moment. Jake was probably stressed about something else. Work, maybe, or his on-again, off-again relationship with his girlfriend. It wasn't about me, but it bothered me. It bothered me more than it should have. 3 weeks passed. I didn't bring it up again, but the $40 sat between us like an invisible wall. Our conversations felt different. More careful. I found myself second-guessing everything I said, worried about setting him off again. My own financial situation was getting tighter. My car needed new brakes, a repair I'd been putting off but couldn't ignore anymore. That cost me $300 I didn't really have. I had to put it on a credit card, which meant interest, which meant I was going backwards instead of forwards. And yeah, I thought about that $40. Not because it would have made a huge difference, but because it was mine, and he'd promised, and now I was paying interest on a credit card while he apparently couldn't be bothered to remember he owed me money. I decided to try one more time. We were at a mutual friend's birthday party at a local bar. Jake was in a good mood, laughing and buying rounds for people. Buying rounds. With money he apparently had. I pulled him aside during a quiet moment, trying to keep my voice neutral and friendly. Hey man, I hate to bring this up again, but I'm kinda tight on cash right now. Any chance you could get me that 40 bucks back? I had to put my car repair on a credit card and I didn't get to finish. Are you fucking kidding me right now? His voice was loud enough that people nearby turned to look. You're really going to do this here? At Chris's birthday? Jake, I'm just asking. No, you're not just asking. You're trying to embarrass me in front of everyone. You're trying to make me look like some deadbeat who doesn't pay his debts. That's not what I'm doing at all. I just need the money. It's $40 Marcus. 40. You're really going to ruin our friendship over $40? My face was burning. People were definitely watching now. I'm not trying to ruin anything. You borrowed money from me and promised to pay it back. I'm just asking for what's mine. What's yours? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Listen to yourself. You sound like some loan shark. This is me, man, your best friend. And you're treating me like I'm some stranger who owes you money. You do owe me money, and I'll pay you back when I can. But you standing here in public making me feel like shit about it? That's not cool, Marcus. That's not what friends do. I stared at him, genuinely speechless. Somehow, in his mind, I had become the villain in this story. I was the one being unreasonable. I was the one damaging our friendship. You know what? I said quietly. Forget it. Just forget the whole thing. Oh, so now you're going to be all passive-aggressive about it? I'm not being passive-aggressive. I'm trying to end this conversation before it gets worse. It's already worse, Marcus. You made it worse by bringing it up in the first place. I left the party, drove home with my hands shaking on the steering wheel, replaying the conversation over and over, trying to figure out where I'd gone wrong. How had asking for my own money back turned into me being the bad guy? A month later, it happened. The final explosion that ended everything. I was grabbing lunch at Taco Bell, one of the few places I could afford to eat out, when I saw Jake's car pull into the parking lot. My first instinct was to leave to avoid another confrontation, but then I thought no. We'd been friends for 10 years. We could work this out. We had to work this out. I waited for him outside near his car. When he saw me, his expression immediately hardened. What do you want, Marcus? I want to talk. Actually talk, not fight. Can we do that? He crossed his arms. About what? About us. About what happened at Chris's party. About... I took a breath. About the $40. Jesus Christ, you're still on that? Jake, you owe me money. That's just a fact. And every time I bring it up, you act like I'm attacking you. I don't understand what's happening here. What's happening is that you care more about 40 bucks than you care about our friendship. That's not true and you know it. But you borrowing money and then getting mad at me for asking for it back? That's not friendship either. I told you I'd pay you back. When? It's been almost 2 months. When I have it? God, Marcus, not all of us are as financially stable as you. I actually laughed at that. Financially stable? Jake, I'm working 2 jobs and still barely making rent. I had to put my car repair on a credit card because I didn't have the cash. Meanwhile, you're buying rounds at the bar and, oh, so you're keeping tabs on how I spend my money now? That's really healthy. I'm not keeping tabs. I'm just pointing out that you seem to have money for other things but not to pay back what you owe me. You know what your problem is, Marcus? You think you're better than everyone else. You think because you work hard and budget and do everything right, that makes you superior. Well, newsflash, it just makes you judgmental. I'm judgmental? I'm judgmental for wanting my money back? You're judgmental for making me feel like shit about not having it. You're judgmental for acting like I'm some kind of criminal because I'm struggling financially. I never said you were a criminal. I just want what you promised to give me. We were shouting now, right there in the Taco Bell parking lot. People were staring from inside the restaurant. A family with kids hurried past us to their car. You want to know the truth? Jake's face was red, a vein pulsing in his forehead. I spent that money. The money I was supposed to pay you back with. I spent it because I needed it for other things. And I don't feel bad about it because you know what? You can afford to lose 40 bucks. It's not going to break you. That's not the point. Then what is the point, Marcus? Enlighten me! The point is that you asked me for help, I helped you, and then you treated me like garbage for expecting you to keep your word. The point is that you're making me the villain for wanting basic respect and honesty from my best friend. Respect? You want to talk about respect? You've been passive-aggressively bringing this up for weeks, making me feel like a failure, like I'm not good enough to be your friend because I don't have my shit together like you do. I never said that. I never even thought that. You didn't have to say it. I can see it in the way you look at me, like you're disappointed, like I'm letting you down. Jake, no, you know what? I'm done. I'm done feeling like I have to apologize for not being perfect. I'm done feeling like I owe you something beyond that 40 bucks, which, by the way, you're never getting back now. Consider it payment for 10 years of putting up with your holier-than-thou attitude. The words hit me like physical blows. You don't mean that. I absolutely mean it. We're done, Marcus. Friendship over. And you can tell everyone it's because I owed you $40. I'm sure that'll make you feel real good about yourself. He got in his car and drove away, leaving me standing in the parking lot, shaking with anger and hurt and disbelief. That was it. 10 years of friendship ended in a Taco Bell parking lot over $40. The aftermath was messy. Our mutual friends took sides, though most of them tried to stay neutral. Some thought I was being petty. It was just 40 bucks after all. Why let money ruin a friendship? Others understood my perspective, saw how Jake had twisted the situation to make himself the victim. Chris, whose birthday party had been the scene of one of our fights, tried to mediate. He invited both of us to his place separately, heard both sides, and then tried to get us to talk it out. Look, he said to me over beers one night, I get it. Jake was wrong. He should have paid you back, and he definitely shouldn't have blown up at you like that. But is this really worth losing your best friend over? He's the one who ended it, I pointed out. He's the one who said we were done. Yeah, but you could reach out. Apologize even if you don't think you did anything wrong. Just to save the friendship. Apologize for what? For loaning him money? For asking for it back? Chris sighed. For how it made him feel, maybe. I don't know, man. I'm just saying 10 years is a long time. You guys have been through a lot together. And apparently none of that mattered more than $40. To him, it wasn't about the money either. He felt like you were judging him, looking down on him. I wasn't. I know, but that's how he felt. And feelings aren't always rational. I thought about that conversation for days. Was Chris right? Should I be the bigger person? Reach out? Apologize for something I didn't think I'd done wrong, just to save the friendship? But every time I considered it, I remembered Jake's face in that parking lot. The anger, the contempt, the way he'd said, holier than thou, like it was the worst insult he could think of. The way he'd told me I'd never get my money back, like it was some kind of punishment. And I realized I didn't want to be friends with someone who treated me like that. I didn't want to be friends with someone who borrowed money and then made me feel guilty for asking for it back. I didn't want to be friends with someone who twisted every conversation until I was somehow the bad guy. Maybe it was about more than $40. Maybe it had always been about more than $40. I started noticing things in retrospect, patterns I'd ignored or excused over the years. The way Jake always needed something, a ride, a favor, money, help moving, someone to cover his shift. And I always said yes, because that's what friends do. But when had he ever done the same for me? When my mom was sick, yes, he'd been there. But when I'd needed help moving into my new apartment last year, he'd bailed at the last minute with a vague excuse. When I'd asked him to cover my shift once so I could go to a job interview, he'd said no because he had plans that turned out to be playing video games at home. When I'd been going through a rough breakup, he'd listened for about 10 minutes before changing the subject to his own relationship problems. When I'd been stressed about money, he'd suggested we go out drinking, and then expected me to split the bill evenly, even though he'd ordered twice as much as me. Small things. Individually, they meant nothing. But together, they painted a picture of a friendship that had been unbalanced for a long time. I'd just been too loyal, too invested in the history we shared to see it. The $40 wasn't the problem. It was the symptom. 3 months after our fight, I ran into Jake at a grocery store. We saw each other from opposite ends of an aisle, and for a moment we both froze. Then he turned and walked the other way. It hurt more than I expected it to. 6 months later, I heard through mutual friends that he was telling people I'd abandoned him over money, that I'd shown my true colors, that I'd never really been his friend. The narrative he'd constructed had me as the villain, the cold, calculating friend who valued dollars over loyalty. I wanted to defend myself, to tell my side of the story to everyone who would listen, but I didn't. Because I realized that people who knew me, really knew me, wouldn't believe his version. And people who didn't know me well enough to see the truth, their opinions didn't matter. A year later, I saw on social media that Jake had gotten engaged. Part of me wanted to reach out, to congratulate him, to try one more time to bridge the gap between us. But I didn't. Because I knew that nothing had really changed. He still thought he was the victim. He still thought I was the bad guy. And I still knew that I'd done nothing wrong except expect basic respect and honesty from someone I'd called my best friend. So here I am 2 years later, writing this all out because I still think about it sometimes. I still wonder if I made the right choice. I still have people tell me I was petty, that I should have just let it go, that $40 isn't worth losing a 10-year friendship over. And maybe they're right. Maybe I should have been the bigger person. Maybe I should have swallowed my pride and my hurt and just accepted that this was who Jake was. Someone who borrowed and didn't pay back. Someone who lashed out when confronted. Someone who rewrote history to make himself the hero. But here's what I know. I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret expecting to be treated with basic respect. I don't regret walking away from a friendship that had become toxic, even if it took me 10 years to see it. Because it wasn't about the $40. It was never about the $40. It was about the fact that when I needed him to acknowledge that he'd made a promise and broken it, he couldn't do it. When I needed him to take responsibility for his actions, he blamed me instead. When I needed him to be honest, he got defensive and mean. It was about the fact that he valued his pride more than our friendship. And when I wouldn't enable that, when I wouldn't pretend everything was fine, he decided I was the enemy. The $40 was just the catalyst. The real issue was that our friendship had been built on an uneven foundation, and when I finally asked for something in return, not even something big, just basic accountability, the whole thing collapsed. I've made new friends since then, better friends if I'm honest. Friends who show up when they say they will, friends who pay back what they borrow without being asked. Friends who can admit when they're wrong and apologize without making it about them. I've learned to set boundaries, to not give more than I can afford to lose, whether that's money or time or emotional energy. I've learned that loyalty doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. I've learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away. Do I miss Jake sometimes? Yeah. I miss the Jake I thought he was, the friend I believed I had. I miss the history we shared, the inside jokes, the comfortable familiarity of a decade-long friendship. But I don't miss the reality of what that friendship had become. I don't miss feeling used. I don't miss walking on eggshells, afraid to ask for what I was owed. I don't miss being made to feel like the bad guy for having reasonable expectations. So when people ask me if I really ended a 10-year friendship over $40, I tell them the truth. No. I ended a 10-year friendship because my friend showed me who he really was, and I finally believed him. The $40 was just the price of that lesson. And honestly, it was worth every penny. Sadiplog. Last month, I got a text from an unknown number. It took me a minute to realize it was Jake. He must have gotten a new phone. Hey, I know it's been a while. I've been thinking about what happened between us. I'm not ready to apologize or anything, but I wanted you to know that I don't hate you. Maybe someday we can talk. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to leave the door open for reconciliation. Part of me wanted to tell him exactly what I thought of his non-apology apology. In the end, I didn't respond at all, because I'm not ready to apologize told me everything I needed to know. After 2 years, he still couldn't take responsibility. He still couldn't admit he'd been wrong, and I deserved better than that. I deserved friends who could say I'm sorry without qualifications. I deserved friends who valued me enough to make things right. I deleted the message and went on with my day. And you know what? I felt lighter than I had in years. So no, I don't think I'm the asshole for ending my friendship over $40. I think I'm someone who finally learned to value myself enough to walk away from people who don't value me. And that's worth a lot more than $40.